So even at that time, you kind of knew like volleyball was the thing.
In high school, like I knew I wanted to play pro, like go to the Olympics.
So you like in grade 10, you're like, yeah, this is,
Yeah.
I'm on it. Okay.
Yeah.
On today's episode of Energy Untold, I'm joined by Graham Vigrass. Graham is the head coach of the University of Calgary Dinos men's volleyball team. He played several years professionally overseas and was on Canada's national team. He went to the Olympics in 2016 and 2020 and was one of the world's best middle blockers. I hope you enjoy this conversation with Graham. Speaking of the Saxons, maybe we should start there. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Start the story there. How many days a week were you spending in the volley dome when you were like?
Not more than any other club kid.
No. Okay.
It wasn't like I was there all the time because it was at the university.
Yeah.
And we were like 20 minutes away.
Yeah.
So.
How old were you when you started playing club?
Would have been grade 8, I think.
Okay.
Which is like
pretty
14 U, 15 U maybe.
Pretty standard at that time.
Yeah, it wasn't like any earlier.
Were you playing other sports too?
Basketball till grade 10.
Okay.
High school coach said I had to make a choice. I didn't want to miss volleyball matches for basketball practice, and the other way too. But I went to a good basketball school that said like we have 4 other guys who play club basketball. So I'm not gonna. So
was there a time even before then where you knew like, okay, volleyball's my thing?
You might have played with him. Do you know Steve Weeb? Maybe he's a bit older.
The name.
He played volleyball at UFC.
Okay.
For like 1 season. Was not a volleyball player. Was just like a good athlete, basketball guy.
Yeah.
Played on the men's team for a year. I don't know why.
Okay.
Yeah, it might have been just before you. He was the basketball coach at Western.
Got it.
That said, like, you have to make a choice. Which now, like, I wish I would have played basketball.
Played both and just.
Yeah. But I was worried at that time, like, I need to play volleyball to get a scholarship.
Right.
Which, hindsight, it's like, I was pretty safe.
Okay, so even at that, you were safe.
Yeah.
So even at that time, you kind of knew like volleyball was the thing.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
In high school, like I knew I wanted to play pro, like go to the Olympics.
So you like in grade 10, you're like, yeah, this is.
Yeah.
I'm on it. Okay.
Yeah. Which was not common back then.
Right.
Guys didn't. I was more exposed because of Don and the volley dome and stuff. But
yeah.
Guys didn't know pro was an option. Or
sure.
Like what that really meant.
Yeah.
Now guys really know. Like guys are super exposed with social media and stuff.
Yeah, everything's so much more accessible. You can see everything's on YouTube.
Yeah, totally.
Huh.
And now guys see like it's a real career. Like Don's generation or like before that, it was kind of a few years.
A hobby.
And he didn't make much money playing pro. Like now in the last, I don't know, 20, 30 years, guys make good money and can do it. So
who were like your early mentors at that time or influences? Don, obviously.
Yeah, like in high school.
Yeah.
Kerry would be like a big one. Kerry MacDonald.
Yeah.
The coaches I had, Magus was a really good one. I tell people like to this day, he's still one of my like favorite coaches.
Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah. Who else? I mean, guys on the national team that I looked up to was like Murray Grappentine, Steve Brinkman.
Yeah. When did you get a chance to meet those guys? When you were still in high school, maybe, or later?
I saw them play in high school. I don't think I met them till like university.
Yeah.
Or maybe like joining the B team or the junior team kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then a big one was my brother too. Like growing up, he's 3 years older.
Okay.
And was just like way better than me at everything at the time. Which was like, I was super competitive and lost all the time. Like he never let me win.
Yeah.
And then I just like
what kind of strife existed in that relationship? Or is
just brothers, like I don't know, just wanted to be better than him. And never was. And then he like stopped playing volleyball, so I never like had a chance to be better at him at the same time.
Yeah.
But I'm like confident that I was now.
Yeah. And then you go to UC and you play out all 5 years, right?
Yeah.
Won nationals once.
Yeah, 2010.
Went to school, got a degree.
Yeah, I didn't finish my degree at like in those 5 years.
Yeah.
Had to do a few classes like while overseas.
Yeah.
Which for me, I'll tell guys all the time like that are playing overseas, like you need to do more than just play volleyball overseas. There's too much time.
Mm.
My brain felt like I was just going to mush like the years that I didn't study at the same time.
Yeah.
And it affected me on the court. Like I felt like I played better when I had enough stuff going on.
Yeah, so
like challenged.
Yeah, a day in the life of a volleyball pro. Like what does that even look like? Because it's I guess at your level at that time. Because you're playing one match a week or two.
Can be two, yeah. Could be midweek and then one on the weekend. So like a Wednesday, Friday, or a Tuesday, Friday, Wednesday, Saturday kind of thing.
Right.
And that's especially if you're in like a European Cup. So that's like Champions League, CEV Cup. Then you definitely have 2 a week.
Yeah.
And then it tails off in the playoffs. Like you have 1 a week, 1 on the weekend usually.
Yeah.
So you're practicing like twice or once a day. And then usually you have a day off after a match.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's lots of time. And the days that you have 2 practices, like it's 1.5 hour workout, 2-hour practice. And then whatever you need outside of that with physio or taking care of your body.
So what are you doing with your time?
Well,
later
in my career when I had kids, there was a lot going on.
Yeah.
Early in my career when I wasn't like studying at the same time, I don't know what I did. Like there was a lot of time around. Sit around and watch Netflix and learn that wasn't like a high performance lifestyle at some point in my career.
Yeah.
And then I think I like played better when there was just more stuff going on.
Right.
Even when I had kids, like that was a big thing that helped me like release stuff from practice in the matches.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, I had a shitty practice or match. And then it's like,
what was the point that you realized that you needed to like shift your mindset?
I never realized I needed to. It just happened. Like I had kids and then it was like, this doesn't matter anymore.
Right.
You know, like I lost a game. I see my 2-year-old and it's like,
sure,
puts things into perspective that this game really doesn't matter for my life or like other people's life.
Yeah.
And it helped me put that in perspective. So like I wasn't so stressed.
Yeah.
Like if I miss my serve right now, my 2-year-old doesn't know or like he doesn't care when I come home. So that was kind of cool.
And then all the countries that you lived in. So there was France, Tunisia, Poland, Turkey, Spain,
and Germany.
Right?
Yeah.
Is there one that stood out?
They all did for different reasons.
Mm-hmm.
Everything was like so different.
Mm-hmm.
France was where we started, and I was making like 12,000 euro a year.
Yeah.
With me and my now wife.
Yeah. That's a little bit tight.
Yeah. And that like stands out for like how tight it was. But still like an amazing experience. I tell guys to go overseas even if it costs you money. Like you learn so much from that and like the struggle and what you can learn from like a different culture, but also different guys on a team. It's different than just traveling.
Mm-hmm.
Like you really get to know guys because your team is full of people from different countries too. It's not like it's not like you go to France and you're playing with 10 French guys.
Yeah.
We had a German guy, Slovakian, Romanian. So you learn a lot and you kind of like need each other to get through it.
When I played in Germany, I had 2 Croatian roommates. So it's same thing.
Yeah. Tunisia was a wild experience just because it's so different.
Sure.
It wasn't somewhere that I don't think I should have gone there. Like it didn't help my volleyball career.
Okay. Did you have another option at the time and then you just went there because it was okay?
Yeah, I didn't have an option and my agent was kind of pushing me a bit to like sign. They're a bit like real estate agents that they just like want to get a deal done. Doesn't really matter.
Right. Has that changed now or is it still?
Yes and no. Okay. Depends who your agent is.
Yeah.
The good ones care about your career path.
Yeah.
Because ultimately, like if they care about your career, then you're going to get better contracts. You're going to play longer.
Yeah.
And then they're going to get more commission.
Yeah.
But when you're young and you're not making much money, like they're kind of taking a gamble. Like, do I spend time finding Graham the best contract?
Mm-hmm.
Or is this one come up, get him done with, work on the next guy?
And at that time, are you on the national team also or just like on the edge?
Yeah, I was on the team.
You're on the team.
So it was FTC, and then I went to play pro in France.
Yeah.
And then I made the senior team like the summer after.
Okay. And even at that time, that still wasn't enough to like push you to like a more legit contract, I guess.
I didn't start in France. I started the second half of the season.
Yeah.
So that could have kind of hurt my agent finding me another contract.
Yeah.
But again, I signed earlier than I should have.
Yeah.
There was stuff that came up. I think it was at like World Championships or something.
Yeah.
There were options to go somewhere else at that time, but
Mhm.
it was too late. Like I already signed in Tunisia. So I should have waited at that point. I just didn't know. And there's a risk to do that too.
And then like going through all those years, where would most of the development happen? Like not during club season, but rather back when you're with the national team, or like, or maybe you were with a good club where there was some additional development. Like, how would that work?
Yeah, it really depends on who your coach is and the players around you in pro.
Yeah.
National team was always kind of very consistent. You're getting better.
Yeah.
From May until September when you're with the team.
Yeah.
Because all the guys have the same mindset. They're all super motivated to develop and work on skills.
Yeah.
And we had really good coaches. Like I was lucky to come to the national team at a good time.
Yeah.
Pro, like I said, it's a crapshoot depending on who's there. I had years of pro where I didn't develop as much. And then I had years where like I had Stéphane Antiga, who was our national team coach for a bit.
Yeah.
And I felt like I got a lot better that pro season too. So
yeah. Well, was there a year where you felt like you kind of stepped up your level, or was it just a steady climb? Or like a year where you kind of, something clicked.
Yeah.
And then, yeah.
Probably my first year in Berlin. I think that was 2015 or 2016.
Yeah.
The year before I was in Turkey with Glenn.
Yeah.
And I wasn't playing much because there was a foreigner rule.
Yeah.
So I was just playing Champions League stuff.
Oh, you couldn't play domestically?
Couldn't play Turkish domestic league.
Okay.
Because there was a 3 foreigner limit.
Yeah.
And we had, I think there was 5 of us at the time.
Mm-hmm.
So I was there to play Champions League.
Yeah.
So it gave me a lot of time to like work out, get stronger, get better. And then I like played in Berlin right away, which I got a lot better from like that good experience.
Yeah.
We went far in Champions League that year too, in Berlin.
Okay. Was there like a point in time where you're like, I need to change my approach if I want to like level up here? Or
I don't know.
Not necessarily.
No, not really. I think blocking wise, it's just such a hard, it's a very late developed skill compared to anything else in volleyball. So that part of my game, like I was always skilled and good at spiking and got by with serving.
Yeah.
And blocking was like a weak point, but at some point it just like became a lot better.
What is it about it that you need time?
I think it's just like your knowledge of the game and what's going on, like reading the setter, what they're doing. There's not really like a written out, or there's not like very clear, a setter does this, that means he's setting in a certain direction.
Yeah.
And that's a question I get all the time. It's like, if someone's elbows are dropping, does that mean they're setting back or forward? And I can never answer that and say like, yes, certain setters do certain things, but you just get a better sense of what's going on, like the longer you play.
Yeah.
Blocking is a hard thing to teach. Like when you're coaching club or, like teenagers, it's the hardest skill to teach because it's
because there's the technical aspect of it, but then the vision aspect of it.
Yeah.
And like, what are you seeing? What are you interpreting? And then automatically like putting together a probability of where the ball is going.
Yeah. And the reward is so seldom too. So like you're not getting a block very often, and it doesn't mean that you're doing the right skill when you get a block. Like you can do a terrible move, a block move, and bad reaching with your arms and get a block.
Yeah. Which
is different from other skills a little bit where you feel like you did the right thing because you finally got a block.
Yeah.
Whereas like you didn't, but
you're not putting a shitty contact on the ball and then getting an ace.
Yeah. I mean, it happens. Like you can miss a serve and get an ace, or like shank a pass and it still goes well. But more often than not, when you're passing, you have a good feel of it, and it's like, okay, that was a good pass. And you can like feel your technique a little bit more than blocking.
What does feedback look like from a coach in that respect? Like as you're blocking, right? It's like they can see, oh, that was the right read, like right process, right execution, result wasn't there, it's good? Or would you get other coaches that were just like so results oriented. It's just like, did you get the block or not? And that's all that matters.
Yeah, you have coaches like that, but also the athlete. Like it's I think it's super hard to tell an athlete like that was a good block, even though you didn't get the point or it went off your like way out of bounds.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know how to convince athletes of that other than showing video. I think that's kind of a big one.
Yeah.
And showing them that like this is the right movement. You made a good read. Your arm's in the right spot.
Yeah.
But it's just a game of errors, and it's just there's a lot of luck to it. So
yeah.
you put yourself in the right position to get a higher chance of getting a block, but it doesn't mean you're going to get one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Aside from your blocking improving kind of over time, how else did the rest of your game evolve? Or was it just kind of like a little bit at a time, like just skills started to accumulate? Or
yeah, I mean, I feel like I was a pretty skilled player all the way through.
Yeah.
Playing beach helped that. Like I played beach a lot in high school.
Yeah.
Even throughout university a bit. That's kind of from Dawn and the Dome at that time, like the Volley Dome. I didn't play Team Alberta in 15U, 16U because of that. I felt like they felt like that was a better way to develop, and I agree with it. Especially as a middle, like you're not getting certain contacts or skills developed on the indoor if you don't play beach.
Yeah.
Just because there are coaches out there that you're tall, go to the net and block. You don't get reps with defense or passing or setting.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then, like I said, like that year in Turkey with Glenn, I feel like there was a big jump because I had time to actually get strong versus the other years in pro. You go right from pro right to the national team and then back to pro immediately. Yeah. So it's a 12-month season with like a few weeks off at some point, which is not sustainable, and it like hurts. Yeah. It hurts the game of volleyball.
Right. What's the reputation of Canadians in Europe?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's hard workers, guys that are like mostly like there's not a lot of drama, which I think is different than maybe some European countries or South American countries. Like we're easygoing and we work hard.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's a big one. There's a good reputation now as the national team's done better in the last like decade.
Yeah.
It was much harder to get a contract before I played, and then even during my career. Now, if you're a good player in Canada, there's people that see you.
Right.
There's agents that come to kind of U Sport nationals, which they never used to. And there's players who have gone from U Sport to some of the top leagues like immediately and had an impact, like going from U Sport right to Italy on some of the best teams.
Wow.
So the results of other players before you definitely changes how people see our country as a volleyball nation.
Probably helped that there's so many matches online now, and like the recording quality is decent, and
yeah, and that's the same for every country, but like the respect of Canada has changed because of the results of the national team and the players that came before us, and now the guys, like there's guys on some of the best teams, like Eric Lepke's on Lube, I think next season, which is kind of a yearly powerhouse, like one of the best teams in Italy. So
right. What was the most like electric venue that you played in as a pro?
As a pro, it might have been Berlin, like our home gym in
your home gym. Okay.
Yeah. The Max Schmeling Halle. They call it the volleyball temple.
Okay.
And it is. It's a gym made for volleyball and handball.
Oh, great.
So it's kind of like the second
tier.
Because
like handball dimensions are bigger. Aren't they like basketball court size?
Yeah.
Okay.
But the stands are like on top of the court. So like the second tier, rather than when you see a hockey gym or basketball where it's like a full bowl.
Yeah.
The second tier is like sitting on top of the bottom one. So even if you're on the second tier, you're like on top of the court almost.
Yeah.
So 5,000 or 6,000 people in that gym feels like way more than a typical kind of arena.
So the roof was high enough that you could still play, but like low enough that it had enough atmosphere.
Yeah, and enough people. Like they're unique in Europe that they kind of average 5,000 or 6,000 people, which is like one of the best.
Yeah.
Yeah, the president did a really good job there. He like invested a bunch of money to move to a bigger hall, but then also put marketing money into it and spend that money to like get fans in the gym, which a lot of clubs won't do.
Right. Flares?
In Tunisia.
In Tunisia?
Yeah, in Tunisia, actually, this crowd threw flares at a timeout. So we were in a circle.
At the players or just on the court?
At the players. But now I don't remember if it was at us. It was in our gym. I think it was at the other team.
Okay.
Like red. It was a Ep2. That's the name of the team, but it was a red team. So they had red flares from like deep in the stadium onto the gym at the other team.
Yeah.
We had a big pause in the match, had to get the fans kicked out. Yeah, totally different experience than I'd ever seen in like any sports game. But they limited how many people could come into our home games based on how many police could show up that day to monitor that many people in the gym. And they were like all together in one little square.
Yeah.
With like police all around them. So, which
and like and visiting fans probably too coming to those games, or no?
I don't remember one visiting fan in Tunisia. Yeah, I wouldn't want to be a visiting fan in that gym. Like, yeah. And they're all soccer fans. Like they knew nothing about volleyball.
Oh, they were just there for the spectacle?
Well, they're there because it's the same club for like the soccer team as the volleyball team, as the basketball team.
Yeah.
And so when you
That is one cool thing about those clubs.
Yeah. And there's history. Like there's hundreds of years of history against these clubs. So when you're playing a rival, everyone comes. It doesn't matter what sport it is. They just hate the other team. And like their parents hated that team and their parents hated that other team.
Yeah.
So
who was the big rival in Berlin?
Would have been Friedrichshafen.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
But Germany's different. Like it's not the same for volleyball. Yeah. And we weren't connected with any like football clubs.
Yeah.
But in Tunisia it was.
Friedrichshafen was a pretty cool gym too. I remember that gym.
Yeah, it changed, I think, halfway through when I was there. It was a smaller gym at one point, but now it's like a pretty big one. Not the same environment as Berlin, but good gym.
And Turkey, with Turkish fans into it too, or
not a ton. It's I was always confused because guys were making good money in Turkey,
right?
But
it was unclear the economics of the league.
Yeah, like the teams aren't making money for sure. Yeah. Berlin was unique in that sense that like they're paying guys good money, but they have people in the fans and like there's actually money coming in. Mm-hmm. Turkey, it was like we find a sponsor that'll give us a ton of money to last for a few years, and then we need to find another sponsor, or it's just like a tax write-off for certain companies that, or like want to give back to the community, which is great, but then there's not a lot of investment to like get people in the gym and make it a real sporting environment, I don't think.
Yeah. Were you more on the European side or the Middle Eastern side?
We were on the European side. No, we were on the Asian side when I was in Istanbul. Yeah. We were in like Fenerbahce has like an actual neighborhood. Yeah.
Associated with the soccer team too?
Yeah.
Fenerbahce?
Yeah. The soccer stadium's right there. And then there's like a big waterfront. It's called Fenerbahce. Yeah. That was the European side. And then the other two teams I was on were on did I say European? I mean Asian. It was on the Asian side with, and then in Ankara and in Izmir are on the Asian side too. Yeah.
It's funny, like you've been to all these places. I'm biased too because I think it's quite important to go and travel, see the world, get some context. But you've intentionally like come back here, but with a different view. Does it give you additional perspective on Calgary and like it's actually pretty good here, or like walk me through your thinking there?
Yeah, I mean we there's a lot of things that are done great in other places in the world, like certain things, but everywhere we went, it was like. There was never an interest to stay there for good. Like we always missed Calgary, loved coming home, never saw like a future elsewhere just because of how much we love it here. Yeah. But there's definitely things that are done better in different countries or different that have value. And that was a cool part of it. Like my wife really liked that. She's kind of into urban planning or like service design. So there's things that we learned overseas that she's like, why don't we do this in Canada? Right. Calgary is specifically because it's like urban sprawl is like her nightmare. Yeah. And that like we didn't have that in Europe because the cities are so old. don't have the space.
It's not a feature of it. No.
Yeah.
And then what about national team? Like most electric venue, or a particular match that was just like the energy just was like next level?
Would have been Olympics in Rio against Brazil in the Maracanã Stadium.
Yeah.
So like I don't know if I'm saying it right, but the Maracana Stadium is the big football stadium in Rio, and then there's like a little gym, little gym. It's like 10,000 people next to it.
Yeah.
So yeah, we lost to Brazil 3-1 in Rio, and it was full. Like it was wild.
Yeah. And you would have known going into that match that it was going to be like a crazy scene.
Yeah. Even our first game against the States was pretty crazy because Brazil was playing next.
Yeah.
And these Brazilian fans were cheering for us against the States.
Yeah.
Which was amazing. It's like that's still one of my biggest game, like our biggest games that I was on the team. We won 3-0 against the States, the first game in the Olympics.
Yeah.
But the fans were cheering for us, and like they were Brazilian, and we knew like, okay, when we play Brazil, that's not going to be the case.
Yeah.
Like they're not going to be cheering for us.
Yeah. What was your best season?
Probably in Warsaw, my first year in Poland, 2018, I think.
Okay.
And then national team would have been like that summer before 2017, I think.
Yeah. So 17, that's the year in World League you were one of the best middle blockers.
Yeah, we finished third in World League at that time. That was the last year of World League.
Yeah. And then they do like a top team afterwards.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. There's two top middle blockers, and there's one for each position.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would have been my best pro year, that one, or that best national team year, that one or the year after.
It was just like, I guess the body is as good as it's ever kind of going to be, mind sharp. And then after that, it's just hard to maintain it. Like, how does that work?
Yeah. And I don't think the level like dropped that much after that.
Okay.
Like there would have been quite a few good years after that.
Sure.
Yeah, it's not like super, it wasn't like a cliff.
No,
if that's what you're getting.
No, not at all. No, I'm sure it's more like a slow burnout.
I still feel like I can play. And maybe I'll always feel that way, but
right.
I don't know if it's true or not, but I feel like I still have the itch sometimes.
That's funny. So when you're at the Olympics, given like how big just the event is, the spectacle, like what does that look like in preparation of a match, right? Because I'm guessing you still want to kind of take in the event. You want to be supportive of other like Canadian athletes, maybe go and see some other event. But how do you, I guess, focus for a match at the same time?
Yeah, the Olympics are unique in that sense because there's like so many distractions.
Yeah.
Like you said, watching other matches, activities like in the village.
Yeah.
Just how big the event is.
Yeah.
And how seldom you play. Like you only play once every 2 days.
Right.
So you play, you have a day off. You play, you have a day off.
So you're playing, and then your day off, you're getting in the gym to practice.
Yeah, you're working out or practicing or both.
Yeah.
But there's still a lot of time that has to be filled with hopefully things that don't drain you for that next game.
Right.
Which very easily you could hop on a bike. Like there's bikes all through the village.
Yeah.
And just see what's going on.
Yeah.
And then you're dead, and like it affects you the next day. We went to the opening ceremonies in Brazil. Don't think we played the next day. I don't remember now. But there's always a question about that. Like, can we, or does it make sense to go to the opening ceremonies if we have a game the next day?
Yeah. Was that a memorable event?
Yeah. Yeah. Opening ceremonies in Rio was amazing. That was in Maracana, like the massive soccer stadium.
There's just so many athletes like out in the outfield, and
and it's funny, like athletes also fanboying over other athletes. You know, like we got pictures with like DeRozan and Kyle Lowry.
Yeah,
we're just like yelling at, like they're walking through like all these Olympic athletes. It's like there's different levels of Olympic athletes with how famous they are.
Yeah. And then compare and contrast to Tokyo, where like everything's still basically on lockdown, right? Like, can you even do anything there? Like,
no, like we didn't go to the opening ceremonies. And then it was just a totally different experience of an Olympics. Like I'm glad that I got to go to one that was real.
Proper. Yeah.
Yeah. I feel for the guys who didn't. Like I feel for the guys who Tokyo was their only Olympics.
Yeah. Just
because they didn't get that full experience. And now lots of the guys on the team that were in Tokyo now got that experience or getting that experience now.
Yeah.
Like the Olympics opens in 4 days or something. So
yeah. Yeah. Do you think Canada's on a trajectory to medal?
They have a chance. They can compete. Like even this Olympics.
Yeah.
Yeah. The top 10 teams in the world, 8 teams in the world to me
are pretty close.
Or? Yeah. Like you can win or lose if you don't have a good game against any of those guys.
Yeah.
So if you get out of your group, and then you have one good game in a quarterfinal, then you're in a medal match.
Is it matchups based at that point, or
yeah,
but even like competing styles, or is everybody playing kind of similar styles at this point?
Yeah, I mean, every team kind of focuses on their strength, so different teams are better at certain skills in the game.
Yeah,
and that'll kind of help them win more points. But
right,
Canada can win against any team in the world at this Olympics. I think. Like I'm excited to see them compete. They've had a super summer so far. Like they've beat really good teams. Just depends on when you have that good match,
right?
Like that top match. So,
is there other teams that you're like looking forward to seeing, or no? I just want to see Canada play and play well.
Yeah, I mean, I have friends kind of on other teams that I played pro with. But no, like I hope they play well, but I don't like care if their country wins. Like I'm cheering for Canada, obviously. But yeah, it'll be exciting.
Who should we be watching for just in Team Canada? Like, who do you think is going to have like a really good tournament?
Lepke and Mar, those are our two kind of top left sides.
Yeah.
They have a huge influence on how that team does. They've been outstanding like all summer in Nations League.
Yeah.
If those guys are on their highest game, like then the team has a chance to beat some of the top teams. So
sweet.
Yeah.
This is gonna be cool to see.
Yeah. I hope you get some good matches with those guys that keep going there.
Yeah. I get there a little bit late. Okay. So I'm gonna miss I think I can catch semis.
Okay.
If we make it to semis, then
you're there. Yeah, nice.
I wanted to switch over to coaching. A little bit while you're here, I guess.
Sure.
How did you know it was the right time to stop playing? First of all.
Yeah. Well, I don't. No, I during the time of interviewing for the job at UFC, I was going through kind of contract negotiations with other pro teams at the same time.
Yeah.
And there was an idea, like if this specific contract comes up, I'm signing it right away and I'm going to play again.
Yeah.
And it came up during the interview process at UFC.
Yeah.
And when it came up, I didn't feel the same way that I thought I would. I thought it was going to come up and sign it. And it was like, I'm not as excited as I thought I would be now that it's an actual option.
Right.
So that kind of was telling for me that I was more excited to stop and coach versus continue and play.
Yeah.
Seeing the guys at the Olympics now.
Like, oh, no.
No, there's, no matter when I retired, I would have missed the game, like no matter what.
Yeah.
I don't think it matters when you stop.
Yeah.
I think every Olympics that comes up is going to be like, oh, like I wish I was there. But that's like not I don't regret making that decision. Yeah. It's just going to come up once in a while.
Do you think it's going to help or hurt that you're still going to be like around the game nonstop?
That idea about missing it?
Yeah.
I think help, because there's things I can do to like help shape the way that volleyball is done in Canada still.
Mm-hmm.
Like my impact on the guys at UFC, but also the youth in Calgary will ultimately someday help the national team. That's kind of the goal.
Yeah.
Is helping change development at a youth age.
Yeah.
So I'm excited about that. Like possibly being part of the national team coaching staff at some point someday. Like that's exciting as well.
So I guess, like talking a little bit about your just personal philosophy about the game, and even as a player initially, and then now as a coach, like who are some of the coaches that kind of influence you the most? That I guess we could start off with just like the coaches that influenced how you think about the game technically. And what were some of those things?
Yeah, big one is like Larry McKay, which he's a very different coach than a lot of guys I had.
Yeah.
He never really gave a ton of technical advice.
Okay.
But he really questioned us to think about it ourselves. So I have this vivid memory. It's like, it's not traumatic, but it's like, it's close. He would ask, like I would make it an option in blocking. He would stop the practice and be like, Graham, why did you jump with the other middle? And I would give him an answer. Like, I saw the setter's hands. This guy's really good. I thought it's a good option.
Yeah.
And he would just say, okay, interesting. And then he would just turn around and practice would continue without an answer of why.
No judgment.
Outward judgment. But no, like,
do you think he knew the right answer?
I think he's just pressing us to think about the game, which a lot of athletes go through the motion in practice with like zero thought about what did I do? What could I have done instead? Was this the right decision?
Yeah.
What's going to happen next time in this kind of situation?
Yeah.
He did that. I think there's room for kind of confirmation or like making it clear.
Yeah.
But
as opposed to just leaving a trail of fog behind you.
Yeah, but even in that trail of fog, there's like, it made me think more. Because if I thought about it for a split second and he gave me the answer, then my thought process is done.
Right.
Him leaving that very open-ended question, it's like, I may have thought about that for the next hour or like that night, which I think is super helpful for an athlete to come up with other things to do or why, or, so many athletes are on autopilot because they've done the same thing for years with the same coach or different coaches. And that's like super important for development, I think.
What about like team play, like tactics? Who was a big influence?
Stéphane Antiga.
Yeah.
He was our national team coach for a couple of years, and then my coach in Poland.
Yeah.
For me, he was like one of the best game plan coaches I had. And a good game plan coach to me takes all the information from stats and video.
Yeah.
And decides that these 3 things or 4 things are what matters for this team.
Yeah. Versus
a coach that gives you all this information and expects you to kind of figure out what's important. It's a coach's, a good or bad coach picks the right things.
Yeah.
And that to me is a hard thing to do.
And simplifies, I guess, the process for you to go and execute it.
Yeah. And determining like, this may be the best thing, or this may be the biggest tendency of this team. We don't necessarily have the tools to take advantage of that. So like, let's not talk about it because we don't have an advantage in that area, even if it's one of their tendencies.
Yeah.
Finding what is the most valuable, but also because of the tools and personnel that we have, is super key. He was really good at that.
So I guess with that backdrop, like how do you think the style of play for the Dinos is going to differentiate compared to the other teams in the country? Like walk me through like how you're thinking about like team building in this, based on your background and your kind of view on how the game should be played.
Yeah, I think, one of the biggest things immediately that I feel like I need to do, or we need to do, is create a love for the game. I think guys are way more focused and determined if they're enjoying what they're doing. That doesn't mean you're not getting better.
How do you facilitate that as a coach, though?
Yeah, that's the question.
You're looking for ideas?
Yeah, I mean, I'm reaching out to lots of different coaches that I've had, or even like players. To me, it's creating competition throughout training. So it's not just a typical training with a lot of coaches is you warm up and you do the same warm up. You do leg swings, you do lunges, it's kind of like a zombie. You do the same thing every single day.
Sure.
Then you do a skill drill, and then you get into a 6-on-6 wash is what we call, or gameplay.
Yeah.
And so expecting guys to not compete for an hour and then all of a sudden you're in 6-on-6 and you need competition, I don't think is the right thing to do. For me, it's starting off right away with competition. So having small mini games. Yeah, fun mini games where there's volleyball skill involved.
Yeah.
And then there's extra requirements or pressures or certain things.
Yeah.
To kind of overload the brain, but also compete. So it's a game.
Yeah.
And I talked with a coach from Team Alberta this week about it, and I think he ran an amazing practice because there was competition throughout the training, rather than just like skills, boring skills, and then we're competing. It's like we compete right away. We might do a skill drill after that, and then there's another competition that's connected to the skill we were just trying to teach. And then maybe another one, and then there was 6-on-6. So there's 3 different points of that practice where there was competition. It's almost warming up your brain to compete. I think like small competition, a little bit bigger, than we 6-on-6. They're ready to fight.
I think what's neat about some of the mini games, and even just witnessing some of the ones that you've that I've seen you do, is it actually prepares you for like weird edge cases that you see on the court. Where if I think of like almost like the stereotypical Canadian athlete, like 15 or 20 years ago, it'd be like panic, and we would like lose that point. Like it's going off the net in a weird way or whatever. Right. But in this way, you're mentally prepared and just cool and calm and like expecting what's going to happen.
Totally. And that's the value of some of those games, is it puts you in actual volleyball situations. I shared with our team in VNL, I sent a video of a Japanese left side setting a ball. And like most countries in the world, this is the ball that he's diving out the sideline and trying to save. So someone just puts a ball easy over the net. Yeah. He's doing the same movement, but you can see his intention that he's like putting the ball onto the net all the way across to his right side. Yeah. And it's like he's done that before. You know, this isn't the first time he's tried to save a ball. He's not specifically panicked. Yeah. He's done this, and he's actually has intention to where he's trying to place the ball. He's not saving it. Right. It's the same ball for him or another guy in a different country, but he's done it before, and his quality is so much better that he's putting this ball on the net to have a better chance to score.
Yeah. How much of a differentiator is that between teams, just the quality of their second contact?
It's huge, especially like how good block defense is. Right. So there are a lot of situations where it's not just a setter setting. Yeah. Japan to me is like maybe one of the best at that. Like no matter who's on the court, their second contact is good. It's on the net. Yeah. Gives you a chance to score the ball. Yeah. But yeah, it's huge. You can get by with not having skills until a certain point, but then it's kind of magnified at the highest level. Like you can't. So it's more important to have a base of all the skills at a certain level.
So you're already, for example, like formulating a mini game around that kind of idea. Yeah, like that'll be a mini game, right? Yeah. Like it's here's like a out of system ball that's in a weird spot, and you have to make good out of that contact.
Yeah, and
there's like a consequence.
Totally, and that's an exciting part of what I'm excited about. This is like this is our weak point of our team, figuring out what that is, but then trying to design a game or design a practice that is not just reps and a coach tossing a ball to rep out that exact action, but creating a game-like experience or like game environment so that happens, but there's competition in it, so guys are focused a little bit more. Yeah. Expecting any age of athlete to focus on dry reps is what happens with a lot of coaches, but I don't think it works very well. Yeah. I think athletes get bored, focus level drops.
It deflates the energy of the gym. Like
totally. And sometimes you have to. Like sometimes there will be skill drills where it is dry and you're teaching a certain skill and we have to stop and talk a lot. But as long as there's competition like sprinkled in throughout practice, I think guys stay way more engaged. Yeah. So if it's my focus level is high because we're competing, but then we're dropping a bit because we're doing some skill stuff. Yeah. Then it's bringing them back with competition. It's kind of like up and down versus skill stuff right to 6-on-6, expecting that huge jump in focus and competition I don't think it's reasonable.
Would you say that that's generally the approach for most like European like training regimes, or is this just something that you've kind of pieced together through kind of your favorite experiences?
Yeah. Like the majority of coaches out there, and it's not a European thing, it's like volleyball in general, is that like it's very generic. This is the way training goes. We do this at this time. 10 minutes later, we do this, then we play 6-on-6. The good coaches I had, Antiga is a good example of that, is he was creative in ways to get, like we said, that result of what you're working on in a fun, competitive environment.
Yeah.
And in doing so, it just makes guys focus way more than trying or expecting them to focus on things that are boring.
Yeah.
That to me is just hard to do.
Yeah. So would you say, I guess, just like as the team progresses, if you were to like identify the Dinos playing style, it would be one more where there's just more of an emphasis on like just general skills, or like, what are some of these things that you envision like 3 or 4 years from now? It's like, oh, that's a Dinos team.
Yeah, I mean, skill is huge, and it's skill like across all positions.
Yeah.
So not having a middle who is super physical but can't set the ball.
Yeah.
Having them understand if they want to play at this level, but even at the next level, like skills are huge no matter what position you are.
Yeah.
That's a big one. And then fighting, like, being dogs, like no matter what point of the game, that's huge. Like that's, if we're competing, no matter who we're playing against, then I'm happy.
And I think that's a point of view that's changed for you too, right? Over the several years, is like you probably would have biased towards team building needs to be like a bunch of physical guys, as opposed to, no, it's actually can be just as interesting, if not more interesting, to have like a whole bunch of skilled guys.
Yeah. And I think
at every position.
Ideally you have both. Ideally you have super physical guys who are skilled.
Yeah.
And that's where you do need that at this level.
I guess you could argue, even just with the state of the sport now in Canada, that's like kind of what we're building.
Totally. The guys coming out of high school now are way better athletes than like when I did back in 2007.
Yeah.
I think there's better athletes choosing volleyball than they used to.
Yeah.
So there are guys touching close to 12 feet while they're in high school, which was kind of unheard of.
Yeah.
When I was playing.
Yeah.
That was like a national team thing, but now there's young guys that are animals. Yeah.
What has kind of surprised you the most since taking the role? You've been in it for a couple months now. Yeah. Guessing the learning curve's probably been a bit steep.
Yeah. I mean, hard to tell if I should share too much, but it's at times like my expectations are a bit different than the guys on the team possibly.
Yeah.
So figuring out a way to bridge that gap where things are super clear from my side, and then having a good understanding of them, if it's like reasonable or not. Just, there are things that they've never done on the court, but also just training in the summer. Like that's, I feel like that's a bit new for some of the guys.
Yeah.
So just kind of making sure they understand what the new normal is.
Yeah.
Like the new normal is different than it was.
Yeah.
And all my conversation with the team so far, and hopefully moving forward, is about now. It's not like how the team was or how things were done before.
Sure.
And we're trying to do it better. It's like that happened, that's done. This is the new culture and expectations of the team.
Yeah. Of
me and of the staff too.
Have you been surprised by like all the growth in the game? And I mean, you can even just look in Calgary in general, like in the past 10 or 15 years. Like I can't believe it, but you've been probably a little bit closer to it than me.
Yeah, maybe not, because like I've been overseas.
Sure.
And then most of the summer I'm in Gatineau or with the national team.
Yeah.
But coming back to nationals, like club nationals a couple months ago, was eye-opening, because there was just a crazy amount of teams and not. I feel like the growth of the game used to be huge for girls. Yeah. But now I feel that's the same for guys. Like there's, I don't know how many teams there were for nationals, but it's way more than when I played, and definitely more than when you played. Like the Oval can't accommodate for how many teams are in nationals anymore. Yeah. It can't host it there anymore.
hopefully it'll be on the roadmap to host it here now that the new event center's done.
Yeah. There's talks about them trying to, for sure. Yep.
Well, Graham, this is great. I don't think I have anything else that I really wanted to cover. This is awesome. Thanks for taking the time.
Yeah, of course. It's funny, like halfway through this, I was like, this is the podcast. Like we're recording right now.
That's exactly it.
It tricked me totally. At one point
I tricked you into comfort, and we're just talking, and then here we go.
20 minutes in, I'm like, oh, there's a red light on that camera. This is it. No one's coming in to talk about the start. But no, it's been good.
Perfect. Thanks, man.
Yeah, of course.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of Energy Untold. Energy Untold is produced by Shortline Creative and recorded at GBE Energy. Art is curated with the assistance of Norbert Hall. For more information on the show, visit energyuntold.com. We would love your feedback. Send us a message at hello@energyuntold.com. Thank you again, and until next time, I am Corey Paddock.